The Student Services Committee of the Waukesha Board of Education to order. First up is verification the meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Next up is opportunity for public comment. Do we have anybody on the docket that wants to speak to the committee? No? Okay, moving on. We have no action items this evening. However, we have several discussion and information items. First up is policy 5200, attendance. Is that right? Yep.
So this attendance policy might look a little familiar since we reviewed it in September. I'm bringing this forward again because it was one of the policies brought forward with Neola and regular revisions. Since they were minor, I thought I'd just quickly bring it back again since this was fresh
Okay.
in our discussions in recent months. So what I have here tonight to share with you is 5200, the attendance policy, a few of the changes that really come in clarifying the absences for physical or mental conditions, i.e. staying home sick, may be excused by a phone call. If you look on page 1 of the policy, you will see the additional phrase under the parent notification section. And then also on page 2, in the excused absence section, A, physical or mental, there's additional clarification on that page too.
Any questions about policy 5200? Attendance, this is up for possible action, so we're looking for approval this evening?
Yeah, I put it as possible action just because it was here
Right.
and there's smaller changes. I did discuss the changes with Mark Leonard, but he's not here tonight, but I
Right.
felt we could have the discussion and if the team was comfortable, could move forward with action, or we could bring it back and discuss it more.
Okay. Is there any questions regarding the policy? For Jen, concerns? Yes?
I just had noticed, I think is maybe just a typo under A, physical or mental condition at the bottom. It says for a period not the exceed 30 days, but to exceed 30 days, I believe.
Okay.
But that was all I had on it.
Yeah, I didn't have anything. I didn't even have that. Good wordsmithing. Any other discussion? All right, I'll be looking for a motion to approve policy 5200 attendance as presented with the modification of the to two.
So moved.
Excellent, thank you.
Second.
Excellent. Any other further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Alrighty, moving on, I did have one oversight earlier in the agenda is to approve the minutes for the last meeting. Be looking for a motion on that. Excellent, Diane.
I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Excellent, Anthony. Is there any discussion on the minutes from our last meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Alrighty. Moving on to discussion information items, and the first one up is the 2022-2023 school safety drills update.
All right, well, what I have for you tonight is sharing something that was been shared previously. It's an annual report that we bring forward around our safety drills. With any drill or emergency situation, our district has standard responses and protocols used throughout the system. They're included in your packet as far as our graphics to help with the key words. You'll often see these in any follow-up communication, either during a situation or after a situation. Fire drills must be conducted at least once each month, tornado and other hazardous drills twice per year, and school safety incidences twice per year. What we have included in the board packet is the drill logs as well as the summary. You can look through each of the schools and then the overall summary to see each school, how they're participating and when they are having these drills. Our team does a really good job of using the language and carrying that through in their communication. One of the things that, in looking at the data, I would recommend as we move forward is just on the form, talking about the duration of the evacuation, rather than evacuation time. I think it's a little confusing. That might be something we'd want to look further into as far as the duration. So that's one of my recommendations as we've talked about just our forms and how we're collecting the information. But all in all, this is an overall summary of all the reports that were done last year that we wanted to bring here for you for review.
Mrs. Voigt?
I have kind of two comments.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that as I was preparing to work as a volunteer at the elementary school level, they shared this with the potential volunteers. That, when they'd be hearing any of those keywords, to have an idea about what the response was going to be. And I thought that was really impressive, that even at that point of volunteer preparation through ERAs, that it was one of the considerations. So,
Great.
Ms. Kate?
Just a quick question. I assume that in the classrooms, they have those visuals that are still posted everywhere, I'm assuming, because I remember seeing that years and years ago. So any substitute that does come in is posted clearly, anyone that's in the room and, monitoring the students, they know the plan.
Yep. Even as we moved into Blair, you'll see these around the building. Sometimes we don't think of us as a school building, but we still need to use those terms too. So that's been a step as we've moved locations too.
Good, great, thanks.
Mrs. Zenobia?
Yeah, just one comment on looking at some of the summaries. Just out of curiosity, there's some differences. I mean, they're all going through fire drills, tornado drills, lockdowns, holds, et cetera. But some are doing maybe one type a few times more and not others. Is there a reason for some of that? Is it just what's going on in the school at the time? Some schools may have gone through like 4 lockdowns versus,
It could be really all like under the principal's discretion of maybe what needs to be practiced, what do people need to feel a little bit more familiar with. Sometimes we get in the habits of doing drills at like a time that it would work well, where the reality is we should be having those drills, like as the kids are leaving for the school bus. That things happen then, so it's something just to consider as each principal determines when and how these are going to look, that we're pushing them to have them at different times, different team members, different experiences, so that they are a drill and people can be successful if something were to happen. But it's probably individual based on the school, based on the group and people responding and just what they're comfortable with.
okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Mrs. Voigt?
as I was looking at the guidelines and how we're required to have a monthly fire drill.
Yep.
And one of the things that, again, as I was working as a volunteer, it so happened that I was at the time that the school was having their fire drills, like, 3 times in a month, three times in a semester, I should say. That it was like, I really felt like my time was being wasted, being involved in these regular fire drills. And, we talked about how tedious it is to meet that requirement. When at that point, the statement was like, they haven't had a fire in a school in Wisconsin for like X number of years. I looked up and they've actually had 2 one in La Crosse in January of '23 and 1 in May in Fort Atkinson. So I can't say that they haven't had any fires, but I think the point would be made if you would have them like once a semester, and you'd have the idea of what the fire drill procedures are, but not necessarily have to do it over and over again. When that concept originally started years and years and years ago, there weren't the other safety drills, the tornado drills, the lockdowns, all the other things that we have to do now. That I just got this brainstorm that we could maybe suggest to WASB that looking at that type of legislation, and making it like requiring a monthly drill and mix it up and be, one of the above, instead of it has to be a fire drill and another drill and, another drill to be able to meet the requirements, the legislative requirements for it. So just a matter of practicality. As a teacher, I wasn't feeling that it was necessary to do it, as often as we had to. And again, if you have
Yeah, I'll add to that, Diane. You brought up a great point, and I was just thinking about that too. Early on in our teaching career, we didn't have these other kinds of drills to worry about, holds, lockdowns, all those kinds of things. Knowing that they're important to have now, it does make sense to kind of, I guess, call into question the number of fire drills that we're having as well. I know they're important, but again, when we first started the once a month, thing, we didn't have all these other, things we have to do too. And they are time consuming, they are disruptive. You remember, it takes quite a bit, you're in the middle of something, it happens, you go, you practice, you come back. About 10 minutes is taken to try to, calm everybody down and get back into the swing of things. And then the bell rings and then you're off to the next, activity. So that is an interesting point. That's something that has changed since, the inception of all of the fire drills.
I'm just looking at all the time that it would take to do all these reports too. This is really a huge deal. And it's necessary for safety, and for the staff to just know this is when you say lockdown, this is what it means and how the kids are supposed to respond. But it's just, how many educational minutes do you want to have spent on those kind of practice things?
Mr. White?
Yeah, so going back to something I think you had noted when you were reviewing the reports with us, you have that elapsed time in there. I'm assuming that you want to go to duration because there's a significant delta between the elapsed time and how much time is actually displacing classroom time?
I think we can clearly identify it just in the header and then use that information a little bit better to enhance our practices.
Is that data available to us now, or is that a change in practice that would require us to capture that?
It is already there on the drill log. So the columns read school, date, time, then it says evacuation time. What I'm proposing is that we change that to evacuation duration.
But are these numbers accurate, though? Is that actually a reflection of how long? So let's just look at, I'm looking at the elementary, is it the summary or the log? I think it's the log. So Bethesda, February 20th of 23, 10:30 a.m. Are you looking at the same one I am?
Yep, I'm
Is,
on it.
is that saying that that was 1 hour and 25 minutes? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, it should be a minute, yeah.
It's 1 minute, 25 seconds.
It should, but I see how it is written differently. But we can look at the format too.
So, okay, so I guess now I'm more curious about what that data actually represents. So is this saying that from the moment the drill went off to the time that students were back in their chairs, it was 1 minute and 25 seconds on a
I think
fire
it's
drill?
evacuate, to get out of the building.
Oh, just to get out of the building? Okay, so back to, I guess, what I was asking. Is the data that tells us how long they were actually participating in the drill and out of the classroom data that we capture today?
The data from when the fire drill, it starts to when everyone's out, the evacuation time out of the building is captured here, and evacuation time. If you want a number that includes time coming back in, that is not, it's not collected.
Okay, I'm wondering if that is something we might want to start capturing, especially if we're going to make recommendations around how often we drill on certain things, right? I mean, I'm hearing from the board members in this, here tonight that actually have been in the classroom and dealt with this, and they are suggesting it's disruptive and perhaps overdone. I think what I would like to know is how disruptive is it and what is the right cadence if we are going to recommend a change? And that data, I think, would be helpful. So I don't know that that's something I would be comfortable yet recommending, but if we could start capturing that maybe for a period of time and take a look at it, maybe this time next year? or am I asking for a really labor-intensive task that would be challenging for the people who are conducting the drills to capture?
Betty?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. That will look different, of course, in every grade level, where kindergarten and first grade, it might take an extra 10 or 15 minutes to get everybody
Sure.
settled, where high school kids, kind of walk back in, all right, sit down, where was I? Okay, so it will look different. I think it would be hard. I mean, you would have to make a conscious effort if you're a teacher to look at the clock when you walk in and see how long it takes everyone to get settled and kind of back in the rhythm of the learning or whatever was happening, and that would, I think, for the teacher that would be
Yeah.
a little labor intensive, I think. But
Okay.
I really don't think it'd be easy to gather at all, because it's really every teacher in the building. Here, this is easy to say, the alarm went off, we were out of the building, okay, stop the stopwatch, and then you're not gonna all get back in right away because you have to, especially at North, there's like groups over here, groups over here, groups over there. The ones outside the gym might be the last ones to get called back in, et cetera. That it's a whole different, there's so many different responses then because you're going out multiple doors. And then coming back in as different administrators come to say, it's okay, come on back in now.
The best we could do is repeat what we're doing right now, is pull the fire drill, start the time, everyone's out, all clear, all around the building, stop. Okay, wait. Everyone gets all clear to go in, start the timer, everyone back in, no one's outside. I mean, but that's not gonna
Yeah.
measure instructional time to the seat, back to the lesson.
Taking attendance again, and it does.
I guess I need to think about whether I still think that that data might be helpful anyway, even if it doesn't give us actual to the minute instructional time lost, but just a general idea of how long schools have kids in and out of the building on a drill like that, especially like, looking at the number of fire drills, that does seem like a fairly large amount of time that, and perhaps it's for good reason, but to Mrs. Voigt's point, if we've only had a couple of fires in the state, yet I look at this same log and I see, 2 lockdown drills? And it seems to me we have lockdowns or some other sort of security type action far more frequently. So perhaps the other thing we might want to look at is balancing out the drills to be more reflective of the things that we actually see in the schools today. Just suggestions. I'm not married to any of those ideas, but I think it might be helpful in terms of identifying what's the best use of our drill time.
I think you could definitely gather that data when the students go back in, when the bells ring and everyone comes in. Usually there's somebody out there kind of bringing up the rear. They could easily start the stopwatch and gather that. How long does it take to get everyone back in the building? But again, once you're in the building, you can add another 10 minutes onto that easily, time-wise. But yeah, I have to agree. I think it's important. I think someone brought it up, the idea about maybe once a term, maybe, maybe the beginning of the year, maybe, near the holidays, maybe once in spring. That kind of makes sense for fire drills. That kind of makes a little more sense to me.
Is the fire drill requirement a state law?
Yes.
Yes. So you have to have it once a month, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a state law.
That's
Yeah,
state law. That's why I'm saying, could it be something that WASB would look at as a
Right,
resolution?
you have to put it on a resolution when they collect the resolutions, right? That's a state law. We do them in every school district. I know it's brutal. Especially when you're trying to wrangle all those kids and make sure none of them wander off or make sure everybody gets back in but unfortunately, it is a state law. So, the question I have is some of where it says fire evacuate, is that fire and/or evacuate? Because the evacuation drill usually requires you to go into a rally point. If you evacuate a school, that's a major affair if you ever do that drill where you evacuate to the rally point. I know at our school, the school that I work at,
I think this is
just fire drill straight.
I believe this is a fire drill with
Okay.
evacuation of the building,
Okay.
not to the.
Not to the
a
rally, not
different
evacuating.
Evacuation
in-
site.
In the event of a.
Like a reunification.
Yes, okay, all right, because that would be a long
Yes.
drill. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Is that a drill that is required, though? Because I
No.
remember doing that at Butler at least once a year.
I don't think it-
Rallying down the block.
Right, to the rally
Church.
point in case
So
there's a
is that
shooter.
something that's
yeah.
required?
I don't think that's a state law.
It's not.
I've only done it at my school district once, and then literally a month later, we had to go to that rally point because we had an emergency in the building. We had to leave the building and go a great distance, but I don't think that's a law. And I don't think it's a law to have any of the other holds or lockdowns or any of those. I don't think they've passed any of those laws yet. Just the fire and the tornado is twice a year, right? Yeah, they do it twice a year. Those are the only ones that I know that are we're legally required to do. Are there any other questions about the drills? It's a lot of data.
Given the conversation, is there interest in revising the data collection tool?
Well, you mean to just find out how long it takes to, for me, no, because I know how long it takes, a long time. I do it once a month, if I'm on site. So I know it takes a long time. I know Diane and Betty know it takes a long time. So, yeah, it takes a long time to get everybody situated and back into the rhythm of the classroom after that alarm goes off. And, you know, and the point of it is we don't really have a choice. We have to do those things. So we are saddled with that loss of educational time, and there's nothing we can do about it. So I don't know. I mean, it's something we can look at definitely, David, for sure. So we can quantify how much time is taken out.
Data is what I do.
I know
for
it
a
is.
living,
I
so
know.
I'm always wanting to get as much detailed data as I can, but I know that it's not always easy, and there may not be as much value in it as I think there might be. So I guess I would defer to others as to whether or not they think that's important data to collect.
I mean, it would be important data if you would put it in the resolution that you put to WASB. That would be the data. However, I don't really see that law changing. I think that the legislature is going to have a lot more on their plate than changing whether or not we have 9 fire drills a year or 5. I just don't see it happening, but it might. I mean, we haven't had one of our resolutions move forward anywhere, ever. So, I don't really know if the amount of work that we would put into that would actually benefit us at the state level. We haven't had a lot of benefit at the state level in the WASB,
Yeah.
arena. Alrighty, so we keep it the way we have it. Okay.
I will change the term of evacuation duration
Yeah,
and just clarify
yeah, I
that.
think would be good to clarify that is the leaving of the building.
Yep.
And it does not really reflect getting back to the business of classroom management.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Good report. Next up is seclusion and restraint.
So this evening, I have our special education directors joining us. They were here last time, so Hadassah Robinson, who is the Director of Elementary Special Education, and Lisa Paulin, who is the Director of Secondary Special Education. They are here tonight to share information regarding seclusion and restraint. Like with the safety drills that we just talked about, this is an annual report out that is required. So they have some details to share with you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
Just a quick question. This is required at the state level? We have to file these reports with the state, is that correct?
Yep, that we have to report out.
Yep.
As Jen said, our job tonight is to provide you information on the seclusion and restraint data for the 2022-23 school year, and it is required to be reported to the board annually as well as the state.
You have been provided the seclusion and restraint data. within the executive summary on the board docs. We are not able to share that information at this meeting because it could contain identifiable data.
As we were looking at the data, something that we did want to highlight is that we have seen a 25% decrease in the number of seclusions and restraints in the district when we compare the 2021-2022 school year to the 2022-2023 school year.
Seclusion and restraint is used as a last resort. The district provides NVCI, which is Nonviolent Crisis Intervention Training, to all special education staff annually. So that includes teachers and our special education assistants. We have added 2 new trainers this year to ensure that all staff have access to NVCI training. And we also have our administrative assistant for student services that helps monitor and making sure that any new staff added throughout the year is also trained.
And we will continue to monitor our seclusion and restraint data throughout the year and offer additional training as needed to make sure that we're best meeting the needs of all students and staff in the district.
Thank you so much for your time. And does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Yeah, Mr. Wad.
Thanks for sharing that. I guess I'm curious, do you have any idea what has driven the decline in these incidents over the time period that you mentioned? Is there anything you've been able to identify as having contributed to reducing that number?
I think the continued training of staff and then adding NVCI trainers so that we're able to offer trainings to smaller groups of staff. So if there are specific questions or scenarios that they want to run through, our trainers have opportunity to do that. I think that's helped support staff at our buildings.
There was also a data analysis with the team conducted last year, and I know that we did a special education training for all staff, understanding those nonviolent crisis training as well as at a building level.
Any other questions? So what do we use for the training? The district I work in, we use CPI for our,
Yes.
strength training.
CPI is kind of the
mean,
company,
yeah.
and then the nonviolent crisis intervention is
okay.
kind of the tools that we're using when
Okay.
our trainers are training. So yes, CPI.
CPI is what we use, okay.
And in talking about the training, just so you have a good visual of it, it's not all hands-on. There's the first part is all about nonverbal de-escalation. Don't go into a conversation with a student acting like you're gonna win, so it's really about strategies to calm and de-escalate situations. It's not all about the actual physical restraint. So as they talk about the training, it's important that there's like 2 parts to it. And the first part is good for everyone, even family members. So it's just a nice training that is put together, and the fact that we have more trainers to support people through the process is really beneficial.
What does the seclusion look like? I know in some of our schools, we actually have rooms where we seclude the students. Is that in all of our schools?
According to DPI, every school should have a room that is free from any objects.
Right, okay.
And that is safe. So that would be.
That's in every school.
Our classroom, or, excuse me, yes, in our
Yeah.
buildings.
Awesome. Anything else? No other questions? All righty. Thank you for taking the time to come and meet with us.
Thank you.
Lot of
Thank
data.
you.
Thank you.
All righty. Next up is the transportation update. This has been a lot of work for this first quarter, I know.
Well, we are going to provide you an update tonight. So it's been an interesting journey with transportation for sure, but as a district, we've tried to communicate this several times, but we strive to provide quality transportation services to all students, and ensuring that kids are getting to school on time is really important. Unfortunately, we've had some bus driver shortages, it's made it difficult where we have many routes that are not being serviced, and then we also have routes that are running early or late, which I know is not ideal for families or teachers. But I have to give kudos to our building principals and our staff who have stepped in and welcomed kids and stayed with them anytime they're coming. Because again, our goal has been to get the kids there, even if it's early or late. So that has been our priority as we focused on just all the transportation pieces that we needed to walk through so far this year. A little data for David. Are you ready? So we, of course, students throughout the district, we have about 11,000. 4,700, or about 42%, are eligible for transportation. Not all of those take advantage of transportation, so we have about 4,100 students who do take advantage of the transportation services. So that's about 36%. So when we talk about all the bus routes, we're talking about 36% of our whole student population. So tonight we wanted to provide more information just on an update based on some board requests. So we have a variety of topics that we wanted to share tonight. The first big area that we wanted to emphasize is our partnership with First Student. In the past, we've had an ongoing partnership. I think what has looked different this year is our regular collaboration. We meet, if not daily, like it's pretty much daily that we are talking with someone from First Student. In this partnership, we have talked about and worked together to promote open positions throughout the district and with our families. We've used social media. I know Mary Jo is here. She's helped a lot with that, getting the word out that we need additional applicants to consider being bus drivers. I know that even in summer, the county fair was used to recruit drivers. And even as of right now, we've recently been planning a hiring event that we will be having at Blair Administration Building on Tuesday, November 14th. What we're hoping to do is gain interest in people who would consider being a substitute, a bus driver, or an aide, or any combination of those. We made up a fake position so far. We're hoping someone wants to do bus driver in the morning, come and be an aide, and then bus driver in the afternoon. We were thinking they could take the bus to wherever they're an aide at. So we're being creative. So we have that hiring event that we will be hosting on November 14th. We sent out information already around that, but that's just one of the ways that we're trying to attract high-quality candidates to the bus driver position. Like I said, we have daily touch points. Through these touch points, we've been tracking applicants through the hiring process. As you can imagine, being a bus driver is lots of components. You need your CDL, you need skills training, you need classroom workshop. You also need behind the wheel. So for each part of these training pieces, we're kind of tracking applicants and candidates throughout the progress of that in order for them to pass behind the wheel, and then we say, all right, let's start another route. We, together with First Student and our transportation coordinator, Yvonne Johnson, who I can't say enough of good things about, she's been critical in the work thus far and every year, but we've worked to consolidate routes as much as possible. And we looked at ridership or student counts on the bus. So for example, if we have about 50 students that are assigned to a bus route and it's repeatedly coming back with 20 students on it, then we have to start asking, can we consolidate this route? It's hard to do that because if kids are in sports and they're not riding the bus, and then all of a sudden the sport is over and they're riding the bus, then we risk being at capacity on the bus. So that's a tricky balance right there, but we are looking at student ridership counts on a regular basis and options for consolidation. We've considered any and all ideas brought to the table, from rolling blackouts to really anything and everything. I know that at one of the board meetings, the parent ride-along program was asked about. That is something First Student does promote. We put that in a communication. So we're just trying to promote the idea of more applicants and just collaborating as much as we can to find solutions. Yep.
Are we working with WCTC at all with the CDL licensing process?
We have reached out to some colleges to inform them of our shortage. There is a process to get our information there. We've done it at Carroll and Ethnos. I haven't specifically reached out to the CDL, but we could.
Because they have like a driver's training course kind of thing
Yeah.
out there, and
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
They're-
don't know if
they're
they're
all-
training to be bus drivers though.
it's more truck
You
drivers.
know, yes, truck drivers, because they have the rigs out there. Are
Yeah.
you talking about having a partnership with them to get our people through the training? Or,
Potentially.
yeah. Or as a recruitment tool?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to talk to First Student about the training
Yeah,
requirements,
right.
because they have specific requirements. Even if you're a classroom teacher, you can't be the behind-the-wheel examiner, so there's
Right.
things like that. So, but that's something we can bring to them to consider, definitely.
Yeah.
So over time, we have been increasing our operating routes, and I know it may not seem like it's quick enough and enough, but we really have made some steady progress. We started the year with 11 routes short, and when we started the year in summer, Yvonne would share with everyone that this is just part of what happens every summer, is that we are short bus drivers, and they end up consolidating. Every other year up until this year, they have made it work. And so that's where there we sat with not only our area, but people across the state and nation who didn't have enough bus drivers. So we consolidated, and then we had 11 routes that were not being serviced. We now, as of this week, we have one route that is not being serviced, but at the same time, we do have some of those early and late routes still happening, which again, is not ideal, but our priority is to get kids to school. We have been able to take a two-tiered system and make it a three-tiered system. That's why we have the early and lates, but we are asking those drivers to do more and be responsible for more. So we appreciate all that they're doing.
Mr. Wood?
Yeah, could you just clarify the tiers and what that means?
Yeah, so think of like a one tier. I'm just going around your subdivision and I'm getting those kids and I'm going back to school. If I'm going to be a two-tier route system, I'm going to your subdivision, taking them back to Rose Glen, but then you know what I'm doing? I'm going across town and I'm going to go pick up the kids from Trinity Lutheran, and then I'm going to go back to Trinity. And then the third tier would be another group of kids in another building. So what happens is you have to add up all that travel time, and then that's how you get so late in the morning or later early in the afternoon. So when we have the buses doing 3 tiers, it's to get more people serviced. And what ends up happening is that when that third morning tier is done, they got to turn around and start the first tier of the afternoon. It's not ideal. Typically, we run 2 tiers, but again, it was our best way to get kids to school. Throughout this whole process, we have students who have an IEP that require transportation, and that has been a priority. We've even had our servicemen and women from our district driving vans so that we could free up a bus driver to drive a bigger bus and take students that have an IEP, a smaller group, in a district van until we could find someone else. So everyone's really been jumping in and trying to help any way we can, but we have been able to fulfill 100% of those special education routes. Throughout the time, we've had weekly bus communication that goes to all the bused families. Typically, what we do is every week they get a communication, just very general. If there is changes to a bus route, then that particular family on that route gets an individual message. So there's always, here's the update, and then if you're individually impacted by it, you get a communication as well. We're trying to avoid mass information so that we don't have kids on bus stops without buses coming. We've also created during this time a transportation dashboard that has the open routes. We've thought several times about adding the late and early, but again, we wanted to avoid as much confusion as possible. I think we have to remember just how many kids and families we're talking about, and it's really easy for someone to maybe just glance at something, and all of a sudden we get a call, and this actually happened. We get a call that we said the bus route was starting on Monday. Well, it's Wednesday, and the kid's out there, so now the family's wondering how they're going to get to school. So we're trying to just walk through all those pieces just really carefully. I do have some good news to share. You want to do it? So I shared with you that we had one bus route that still was not covered, and we had our bus call today, and we are excited that we have a little bit more driver capacity. And so on Monday, Route 34 will be starting. That is the last one that completely hasn't been running. So that is a huge success that we will have all those up and running. Yeah, do you want to share? You can share.
So in addition to that, we do
Dr.
this-
Siebert really likes transportation and busing.
we do this work together. We have a couple of additional drivers coming online next week too, so we'll be able to address 2 of our early late routes. That'll be a combination of parochial school and public school routes. And then we have some additional drivers in the pipeline too. First Student has had some good support from sending people to Racine to get trained, and then also we've had a trainer from Wausau come down to Waukesha that's been training. So we're hopeful that we continue to see applicants, and we're very excited about the job fair too, that hopefully we can continue to address the early and late routes and then get to a point where we're fully back online in the coming, it's hard to say, but in the coming weeks and months.
Good. Mrs. White?
I just want to thank you for taking the time to share this kind of report, to us and to the community, because I think that it's been a hot topic, and you've been doing so much for them to be able to see the efforts and the results that are paying off.
It's a team effort. Ron Johnson, our transportation coordinator, has been a huge part of our team too, so kudos to her too. But thank you.
Just a quick question. I'm sure, in contact with First Start, First Student, you probably have heard this, but how are the other districts and, region-wide, nationwide? I mean, how are they faring? Are they coming up on board? Are we kind of a little bit ahead of the game? Are we all kind of steadily coming up, or is it still pretty drastic in some places?
From my understanding, there's some other districts that are still hurting pretty much. So the fact that we're able to get this up and running, one thing we've been committed to is not over-promising where, hey, we can get this route, and then all of a sudden, there's like 3 drivers sick. Like, we are looking at how many people are out for sick or medical leave. I mean, because that stuff still has to happen. And what we don't want to do is say, we got this route up and going, but we don't have enough people for standby. So we've been really intentional that way, that I'm not sure that every other place is doing that or has the luxury to do that. I know that some districts, there's a phone call about 5 in the morning, and then families find out that morning if they have a bus or not. So the fact that we now can say, as of Monday, the 13th, we're going to have all of them running, I think we're in a good spot. But everyone is in a different spot and doing their best.
Well, I thank you both, too. Like Diane said, this is because of your hard work and, the perseverance you've put in, and the community is truly blessed to have you guys in this position.
Mr. White?
Yeah, thank you both so much. I know you have been working on this pretty much daily, I think, right, since the start of school. And I don't know that everyone understands just how much work the district and the folks at First Student have put into trying to resolve this issue for the district, and the progress has been great. Obviously, it's never going to be fast enough for those families whose kids are not getting to school on time or getting home late or don't have a route, but that's great news that we're looking at possibly having all of the routes covered. Couple of questions I have. The first just centers around, what do we think is the correct number of bus drivers that we need to alleviate all of the issues we have? Not just get all the routes covered, but also alleviate the issues with kids getting to school on time, getting picked up on time. Do we have an idea?
So, in the past, in the past, we had run 87 routes. So that can be more drivers than 87 because some are AM only or some are PM only, but for our sake here, let's just say 87. What we tried to run this year to start the year was 68. And so then we started 11 routes short, and we were merging others. So right now, we're running in the low 60s. So if we can get back to the 68 routes, that would allow us to untangle the three-tier routes that Jen was describing. So minimally, that many drivers, because as I said earlier, some are AM or PM only. And then First Student also maintains, as Ms. Gunnerman mentioned, a stable of standby drivers, which is generally around 6 that fill in for the different types of leaves. So we're approaching where we need to be.
So to follow up on that, and, hearing that this is a common issue that crops up every year, have our partners at First Student been discussing any strategies they plan to employ to try to alleviate this next school year? Or, is there something we need to do as a district to prepare for the likelihood that we may be short on bus drivers again to start next year, knowing that that's a pattern?
I think it's a good question. I think most of our energy has been spent on, right now, just trying to
Sure.
get ourselves back to neutral. But that energy, once we get to that point, I think can certainly turn to how do we think we avoid this into the future. The challenge is, as Ms. Gunnerman said earlier, this isn't just a Waukesha problem. It's a Wisconsin and national problem. So, and it's beyond bus drivers, right? It's in most sectors of employment. So I do think we have to spend time in that regard and figure out how we talk about that once we get through this challenge.
So for those that may be watching now or watch this later, I know I've been kind of shocked at the conversion rates from applicant to driver, right? Do we know what those numbers are, and can you share with us what the most common reasons are that applicants don't make it to a point where they're hired and wind up becoming a driver?
So our understanding is that traditionally their conversion rate was roughly 10%. It's in single digits at this particular point. So people that come into the system that don't complete it. It's a myriad of reasons as to why people don't make it. Some people, it's not exactly what they thought it was going to be. The hours aren't as plentiful as maybe they had hoped. They maybe aren't able to actually progress through the training successfully. They're not able to pass the road test. Drug testing at sometimes becomes an issue. So there's a number of factors as to why their rate is what it is.
Are we also seeing competition from other driving-based jobs that may provide more flexibility? And I'm thinking Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, doing deliveries for, say, Walmart, or my impression is that is having a significant impact on where people who want to drive and have more flexible hours are going.
We're understanding the same thing, Mr. Watt, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding the busing update? Anything? Alrighty, well, good luck. Getting close, so.
We
we're
are
almo-
getting close.
We're
We'll
almost
send out-
there.
We'll send out the communication this week for Route 34 to be starting. Again, all transportation families will receive the communication, and then individual families will get an individual communication too.
So just one question, what does the sports busing look like right now? Are we having,
We're doing our best.
Okay.
We do have some people who want to do those.
Right, okay.
You know, and that's where
right,
some people want those, charters rather than the
then the
daytime.
day-to-day, right? Rather
But
drive the athletes?
I think we've been doing okay.
Okay,
We also have those vans that we purchased. That's
Yep.
been helpful.
okay.
Yeah, we're not able to fill all of the charters, but we're,
Okay.
to Ms.
We're-
Gunnerman's point, we're doing the best we can and then trying to supplement with the vans, but there is some individual travel still.
Okay, awesome, excellent. All right, well, thank you very much. Good report. All righty, next up is district communication update.
All right. Well, we're fortunate to have Mary Jo King with us. Mary Jo is our communications specialist for the School District of Waukesha. This was a future agenda item request that dates back, I want to say maybe 2 more board meetings, if not 3. So we wanted to come and present a high-level overview of our internal and external communication efforts, some of our efforts around crisis communication that we're building, and then try to answer any questions that the committee has, and we'll do that as quickly as we can. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Jo to start walking through the presentation that's on the screen for you.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a really long time since I've been in a boardroom presenting or being part of something like this. So I've been pretty used to just making things look pretty, so I will try my hardest to speak slowly and share with you the information that I have tonight. As Dr. Siebert said, we're going to share a little bit about 3 different areas of communication: internal, external, and then crisis communication. So I'm just going to start with our internal communication. This year, we had a little bit of a change in regards to how we have communicated with our staff. In the past, I'm sure all of you have received an email that was our Friday Connect. Friday Connect was done every Friday, and I always aimed to get that out by 3:30, but I'm sure all of you could recognize that sometimes it was 5:30, sometimes it was 6, because we were usually waiting on information from individuals to come through that they wanted to share and highlight. Part of the new change with the internal communication from our Friday Connect was to make the emails less frequent and more useful to our staff and to everybody on the readership side of it. We have rebranded it. It is now called the Explorer. I went with the compass look just because north, south, east, west with all of our high schools, and then inside all the compass has all of our schools that feed the information that will be coming through Explorer. Again, it will be coming bi-monthly. I can't say every 2 weeks because there's a little bit of a shift in dates depending on how the meetings line up. One time a month, we will be sending a focus that is on student and staff highlights. Any department notes will be uploaded and shared through something called Navigator. Navigator will be given to each department, so student services, teaching and learning. This process has not been completely finished, but basically it's going to be a Google Doc that will be searchable, and our staff, faculty, whoever can go back and search for things. That's something that we've had a hard time with in the past. Going back to emails to find where we had information on professional development or information on, when we had COVID, certain things people were looking for. So we just wanted to make it a little bit easier to search and bring information back up that they want to reference. The other date that the Explorer will be sent will include board highlights and committee highlights. I think all of you probably have seen that recently. It went out maybe about a week ago. It was our first edition. It's going to take all of your committee highlights, your board highlights, and anything that is shared at all admin, and it's going to put it all in one communication. That way, every person is on the same page, they're hearing the same message, and there isn't a delay in time where that message is being shared with everybody. It's hopefully pretty instantaneous in sequence with those meetings. The other thing with the new way that we have this set up is we can see a viewership. I can't tell you who read it or who did not open it, but I can tell you that the last edition, it was 67% opened and read the Explorer. When I send it out, it does not just go to teachers or admin, it goes to everybody. It is coaches, it is custodians, it is aides. Just because everybody has a value of learning the information that's happening at the board meetings, things that are happening with our students to celebrate. So it is not just teachers and admin, it is everybody. So a 67% open rate is pretty good. So that's a really exciting thing to see for our first edition. The other thing, I do have the ability of the way we're doing the Explorer now is if I see that it's currently at a 67% open rate, I can resend to those individuals who have not opened it. I don't know who it's going to, but I can resend it as a reminder saying, hey, don't forget to check this email. So that is our new Explorer. The other thing is every principal was shared at one of the all admin meetings, dates and what the topics are or what we're expected to be sharing. In November, December, we have all schools scheduled that they'll send me information that we will be putting in on the dates where it's student or building celebrations. We have had a lot of people reach out and ask, are we still going to be sharing, let's say they did a fun activity in a classroom and we always used to share those. Will we still be sharing those? Yes, we will, but it might be a little bit different. It might be in more of a gallery slideshow. We might put a video reel together that we can share on other social media, but as we've always done in the past, anytime anybody shares anything, we make sure we check FERPA, make sure all those students are approved. And our teachers are great at that. They always know who has and can be photographed and shared, so that is super helpful. We talked about the openings. So the other thing that I'll go through quickly is the external communications. I know everybody has thoughts on what we do with our external communications, but some are forgotten. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Peach Jar. Peach Jar we've been using for probably 5 years. Basically, it takes away that folder that goes home in the kid's backpack where we stick the flyers in, or at the high school and middle school levels, they have a table full of flyers that the kids can stop in and grab. Each school has their ability to have staff members upload files. We also have community members or group members who have the ability to upload a file, and I just go in and approve it. So one of the examples was the orchestra concert that they had on October 23rd, which was the all district orchestra concert. That was sent out to 9,500 people. 6,100 opened that email and looked at it. 707 actually clicked on it. And then, I can continually see what people are looking at, what are they doing. So Peach Jar has been very helpful. Right now, we're working through something where we had some issues with some school site assignments where some people weren't receiving them, but I think we're covered all that and we have that fixed. So Peach Jar, if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to ask. Our community newsletter, we typically do twice a year. This one will be coming out shortly. I have the draft together. We are waiting to implement a little bit more of the budget information that has been shared recently. It typically includes a note from Dr. Siebert. It always includes some type of budget and finance information. It will include the community partner recognition that just happened recently. Student recognition, we usually highlight our national merit semifinalist students. We've had a lot of music and drama highlights, a lot of band collaboration we've had across the district that we're looking at sharing. And then we've had a lot of change in our administration, so maybe a brief overview on our administration. So that is the community newsletter. As far as social media goes, currently we use Facebook, which I'll touch on, but we also use Twitter and we use Instagram. We do not use TikTok. When we do use Instagram, it's coupled with Facebook because they go on the same platform. Twitter or X, as we all know it now, typically I'll use that for businesses. So if we have a partnership with somebody, I typically use that to tag them and acknowledge their partnership or what they've done for us. Facebook, we all know that there's a lot of Facebook information out there and things that happen with the district. So currently, when you look at our readership and who we have 6,744 followers. Those are people who currently see our feed come up in their screen when they log on. So if you're a follower, you're gonna see our information come up. Likes is a little bit different. Those are just people who support our page. So if you would look at their profile, it would say that they like us. Everybody thinks that likes are the big thing, but really I'd rather have the followers if it was my thoughts. When you look at our followers, 81% of them are women, 19% are men. That doesn't surprise me. That's also another topic when I post things. Typically it's at night. A lot of moms, parents, dads, it's at night when they're looking. So I typically don't tend to post a lot during the day because it will just go further in the feed and it's missed. This is just a brief snapshot. I do have the availability to look into Meta, and I can see different districts around us because I follow them, and I can kind of see where they are as far as what their followers are. So looking at some pretty near to us, we're doing pretty well. We are a big district. If you look at MPS has 33,000 followers, but there's reasons why that is. But this doesn't mean that our reach doesn't go further, because it does. And there's a ton of data and information I could get into, but can be diluted. It's kind of confusing. If anybody wants to talk further about that, I'm happy to do so. But for this presentation, I wasn't going to expand on that. Frequently, I get asked a lot of questions about, do I hide or delete our posts? I do not delete our posts, ever. They might be hidden, but when they're hidden because it's a keyword. It's a profanity. It's something that they type something in there and it just automatically hides it. It's there, I can see it, I could pull it for records if I needed to, but they are never deleted. Sometimes I can look back at them and I'm happy to share this one with you guys when we're done with the meeting, but I'm glad that some of them are hidden, to be quite honest with you. And the other reason why it's really, I don't want to say it's sad, but it's upsetting. You have a lot of times where we're celebrating our students, we're celebrating our staff. I mean, we have beautiful people in this district, and then for people who don't know anything about this to comment on someone's retirement photo or their, state photo, what their opinion of the school district of Waukesha is. So that is one reason why I do hide comments, because I don't want it to ruin something that's a celebratory event for somebody else. And then lastly, this is a little bit of an answer to individuals who don't want to be on social media. I will be beginning probably at semester. I'm going to start throwing out some videos to our principals. ThrillShare is part of our website, and basically what it does is it incorporates any social media platform with our website. The left-hand picture is just a backside view of how it can be incorporated. So if I was a principal at Saratoga STEM, I could connect my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram, and my live feed, which is the front of our website. I could make one post, and it could go to all 4 of those spots at once. The thing that's nice about it is ThrillShare also has an individual app by itself. So if parents want to stay in the loop of what's happening in their schools, they can use the app, or they can just look on the front of the website. So it will feed all of those at once, which is, it's a nice thing. And it also feeds the lunch menus. We always are updating the lunch menus in there as well. Lastly, the crisis communications. In the process of creating a full Google template library, I've worked with some individuals online that are also in the same type of role that I am, and just creating a really robust communication library with items such as building lockdown, building lockout, power outages, fire alarms. My goal is to have all of them so that they will be shared with all of the principals, admins across the district. They would find the one that they're looking for, and everything would have like a form field to fill in. So it would take minutes just to fill it, send it, and you're done. Those times are really crazy, they're hectic, and it would just be a lot easier if they didn't have to think about adding all that information into a letter. So hopefully within the next, I'd like to have them done in the next month and a half. Hopefully we'll have a large library out there and available for them to use. You guys have any questions? I think that's all I have.
Questions for Mary Jo? Anything? Mr. Zenobia?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I know it's a difficult job at times, and I think it's done very well. I do want to ask a question on the crisis part of it.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of been an evolving topic over the last couple of years. What are some of the resources that we're either looking at or hoping to lean on in the future? Have we identified those things? Are we?
So I just spoke with Jim earlier today, and while I've been off with my surgery, because I've been out since the beginning, pretty close to the beginning of the year, off with a injured arm, I've been doing a lot of research on different districts. They're very, very willing to share their topics, and then there's also, I can't think of there's one website, is it, that you can create all those documents as well. I can't think of the name of it.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what.
Yeah, I can get that name to you, and then I can also share with you, but there's also some communication, specific communication groups that I belong to that I can get that to you as well, and they share all of their topics and all of what they're doing with those. I'll get you guys an email with the names of them so you can look at them.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mary Jo?
I did have
Oh,
one more
okay,
question.
sorry.
You talked about the social media and some of the management you have to do there. Has that gotten harder over the last few years, or is it been about the same since you've been in the role?
I think yes and no. I mean, it has its ebbs and flows. Obviously, everything kind of goes in waves. I really depend on it to kind of write itself, which it normally does. You know, the groups out there that are discussing heavily a topic, they usually kind of figure it out themselves. And luckily, I do feel that we do have many people who share their angst and their, you know, what they really feel, but then we have just as many out there who are willing to come back and say the nicer side and share the good things that we're doing. I do typically 100%, I will not engage somebody on social media on the platform itself. I do reach out to people on a one-on-one basis. If they have questions, if they want to learn more, I am more than happy to share that information with them. It's just not, I don't want to be that district that is going to engage that. It's just, you know, we're better than that. And I'm totally perfect with them engaging with me one-on-one if they want to discuss something. And it's worked out really, really well.
Hey, anything else?
We're good?
Nothing? Excellent. Thank you for all your work, Mary Jo.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is other business. Recommendations for future meetings. Does anybody have a recommendation for an upcoming meeting? If anything comes to mind, please email myself and Jen, and we will definitely get it on the agenda. So that concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you for taking the time. Meeting adjourned.